All right, welcome everybody. We are so excited. We're so excited that we have the opportunity to feature Larry Michael in this special masterclass that we have. We're calling it a wisdom workshop, and it's kind of emerged as a vision that we've been cultivating about how do we spotlight some of the wisdom keepers of our tribe? How do we bring together people that are anxious to learn and grow and expand together? And how do we create space for us to share the codes of transformation? And I love looking at like what's about to happen as a code exchange. And when I talk about codes, I think about our minds kind of being like computers, like there's different programs that are running, and just like codes run, which how a program operates and what works, there's codes that generate the different results in our life based on the belief systems that we have and how we operate and the habits that we have. And there are certain people that have codes of money. They've cracked the codes of wealth, and they know how to generate and create wealth. There's some people that crack the codes of physical health and well-being, and they just understand how to be strong and muscular and vital. And then there are some people that have cracked codes as it relates to relationships. And as everyone knows, this is something that Maya Rose and I are deeply passionate about. And my passion comes from the fact that I spent the vast majority of my life being in completely broken relationships, having no idea what I was doing and wondering why my relationships weren't working. I had no idea like how to show up in my masculine energy. I had no idea how to love these beautiful women that had showed up in my life. I had no idea how to create lasting intimacy and connection. I had no idea how to stand strong in my purpose. Like there was just so much I didn't know because we're just not taught. There's not classes in school where you're taught the codes of lasting, thriving, passionate relationships. And most of us, I don't know about you, don't grow up in environments where that's effectively modeled for us. I don't know, just by a show of hands, I'm curious, how many of you grew up in a home where maybe your parents weren't the absolute best models of passionate, intimate, wildly successful models of intimate love? How many of you did not see that growing up? I love my parents. I adore them to death. And I never once saw them hold hands, kiss, hug. I just like it just wasn't something that was in their vocabulary. And so I knew they loved us. They created a safe environment, but it was not an environment that taught me how to have a thriving relationship. So it was a lot to figure out the codes. And so I'm really grateful to have each of you guys here to be part of this experience. Just before I introduce Larry, I would love everyone just in the chat below, just chime in. Where are you joining us from? Just like I would love to kind of get a sense as we're all coming together for this wisdom workshop. Like, where are you physically right now? Got Erica in Venice Beach. Josh is in Orange County. Paige is in Provo. Where you guys at? Everybody chime in. This is roll call time.
The Netherlands. Wow.
Netherlands. Awesome. Stretching across the sea. I love it. Yeah, just come on. Everyone chime in the chat. Where you guys at? It's good to see you. As you're chiming in, I would also love to just get grounded in terms of setting some intentions. Why are you here? Because I think there's so much power in just getting clear, like what's our intention for coming together? And if you could just in one phrase or a word, like a short sentence in your own words in the chat, share like what is it that brought you here today? Is there something specific you want to learn? Is there a challenge you're navigating through? Is there a dream that you have? Is there are you just wanting to spend some time and connect with your legendary family? Like what is it that brought you here right now? Just in your own words, chime in your intention for our time together, because that will help set the frequency of this exchange of codes that we're going to have together. So Samira says, I'm a relationship counselor. I'm interested. All right, beautiful. So she has a lot of experience. And what I love is for people that consider themselves relationship experts, learning, always being that path of learning is such a useful thing. And Larry is a master Paige says, I just always want to learn from Larry. I love that. Just everyone chime in. What is it that brought you here? What do you want to get out of it? Let's set some intentions of what would make this most valuable for you. Sahara said, I'm doing an event celebrating love. So here to learn more. All right, beautiful. So let's hold that intentions. Josh says, strengthening my understanding while waiting for something truly magnificent from the universe to be prepared for me. That's beautiful. And once again, some of you are in relationships and you're looking to improve them. Some of you are in relationships that are struggling and you're like, wow, how do I fix it? And some of you are in between relationships and you're calling in that partner that you really want to be with. And some of you are, you just barely started dating. So wherever you're at, I promise the content is going to be really useful. So without any further ado, it's my honor to introduce this beautiful soul that I have so much love and respect for. Larry Michael has been on this path of personal development and transformation for over 40 years. So he's drawing upon a vast well of wisdom, and his path through the years have led him to partnering with people like Tony Robbins and all of these other great leaders of the world. He's someone who has been involved with countless, like literally countless transformational events and experiences and programs. And some of the wisdom codes that I carry are around something he calls genetic energetics. And it's a profound system for understanding yourself and for understanding your partners and other people in the world. And I'll give Larry space to share more about what genetics energetics is all about. But I promise you, for anyone that this is new to, if you haven't heard of genetic energetics, set up a time to have Larry walk through your genetic energetic profile. It will blow your mind and help you understand you better than ever before. Because one of the greatest keys to having a lasting, meaningful relationship is to be able to understand you first and then to understand your partner. So at the end of this, I'm going to invite Larry to give his information if you would like to set up a deeper time to work with him. But I couldn't recommend that more highly. And then one of the reasons why we're doing this right now is because Larry has been on this odyssey of his soul in writing a new book. And I'll have him share about that, but it's a really exciting thing that we're going to be here to celebrate that. So without any further ado, I want everyone to take yourself off mute. We're going to give it up for Larry Michael with a big round of applause. 1, 2, 3.
Oh my goodness. That's great. Gerald, thank you. I'm so grateful. It's such a treasure to have you in my life and to have connected and been just doing this dance of learning and growing and discovery with you and the legendary family. So I totally appreciate this space. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, where do we begin? At the beginning, probably. I, like you, Gerald, grew up in a family that I never saw my parents hug or even hold hands. I remember, they had a queen size bed in their room, and I think the middle of the bed never got any, at least I couldn't imagine where anything ever happened there. And, the only proof I had that there was more intimacy going on was the fact that I had two sisters and I existed, right? But other than that, I didn't see much more. So from a very, very young age, I was kind of looking for an understanding. I would watch these movies that would be love stories and all these things going on. And I'm going, but that's not happening around my home. What am I missing here? What's not there? And the allure of like even a Disney movie or an Elvis Presley movie or something, like Viva Las Vegas, whatever it might be. It was like, wow, I want some of that. I want some of that. And as a kid growing up, I felt really awkward because I didn't understand much of it. So I was searching, constantly searching for it. And I don't know if that's true of all kids, but I realized that that search just continued and still continues, and that I'm always looking for a deeper understanding about how we connect. It took me into just a waterfall of experiences from the time I was 14 all the way to today that have involved things like early S training, T training, psychocybernetics, which was introduced to me when I was 14 years old, believe it or not. Things like Siddhartha, just a variety of things that kept showing up in my world that said, you need to figure this out because your sense of significance and even importance seems to be attached to it. Now, I didn't use those words back when I was younger because I didn't even have a clue that that was what was really the issue. But I know that I was just driven for it. And it took me into my studies, which were in psychology and social anthropology and statistics. So I wanted to get to be really, really good at that. I wanted to be I was going to be a psychologist, a psychiatrist, actually, was my decision when I was in school. It wasn't one of the three occupations that my dad said I should get into, but I went that route anyhow. And in that process, in those studies, it it was just it was so immersive and so exciting, but there was also lots of things that still seemed missing. And I continued and continued to try on new things until, mm, gosh, this is a really fast forward to 18 years ago when I was introduced to genetic energetics. Back then, it was called Match Matrix. It was designed, it was actually created by a gentleman that had gone through four divorces. And he figured, boy, I'm a really smart guy, but something's wrong here. Why do I keep messing up? And he was a scientist, an efficiency expert, and he was very into all the esoteric sciences. So he liked enneagrams and numerology and Vedic and Western astrology. And he just started putting things together and came up with a system that identified the energetic frequencies we vibrate at, which at the time when I was introduced to this, I'd never heard of anything like that. And I was really big into profiling systems. I was really big into, I really loved the esoteric sciences. I didn't find them to be the answer for everything, but they certainly gave me some insights that helped. And then I got introduced to this thing, and this stranger profiled me, and I went, whoa, what now? That more than anything else I ever had experienced just typed me. It like absolutely explained things that were bothering me or issues that I had shame or blame around or resentment or just all kinds of stories that went back through my entire life. And in the space of 30 minutes, almost to an hour, talking to him just about me. And by the way, I wasn't talking to him about me. I wanted to fix a relationship at the time. Um, it was a shift. It was a major shift in my life. And I got so involved and so taken back by it that I asked him what he was doing, and he asked me if I wanted to help him with the company because the man who created it almost 40 years ago had passed away a few years beforehand. And I went, well, maybe, maybe. I mean, what you told me was phenomenal and so accurate, but I don't know if that's going to be true for everybody. And he said, well, go figure it out. You tell me. And I went, so you will pay me to go interview people and figure out if this thing's really efficacious. And he said, sure. And he did. And I spent 2 years interviewing over 1,000 couples, and it was just never wrong. So I got involved. But when I got involved, the whole focus was about matchmaking. It was like, how do you find your perfect match? And the contention was that if you were identical, like, same blood types, that would be a good match. For example, I mean, thinking of blood type itself, if you go get a transfusion, you're going to get a transfusion with your own blood type. That's going to be the healthiest thing. In fact, the safest thing. And it turns out energetically, there's some truth to that as well, that finding someone that's an energetic match provides certain clarity and ease and deep development that otherwise is more challenging. And that was their contention, is that you find your perfect match, you're going to have a perfect relationship, it'll last forever. It was a pretty lofty statement. But when I went to research it, what I discovered is that there were a lot of imperfect matches. And I don't mean imperfect in a bad way. I just meant that they didn't match exactly. And there were a lot of really successful relationships that weren't exactly the same. But they had challenges. And at the same time, they stayed committed and they were making it work. So I really wanted to understand that. But what I really discovered when I did these interviews is that when I came back to people and showed them what was going on energetically, they were having an experience that I didn't know about until they wrote me about it later. So I would just kind of brought all my psychology skills together, and I would have a couple that I was talking about, and I'd find out they weren't really an exact energetic match. And I would be telling them how they could navigate those differences, how to accommodate for them, how to understand them, how to appreciate and acknowledge and honor them. And then we get off a call. And what would happen is it could be 6 months later or even a year later in some cases, where I'd get an email and someone would say, "Hey, by the way, thank you for saving our marriage." Or I just want to tell you, I spoke to my dad for the first time in 20 years. And I'm going, "What?" And I'm realizing this wasn't about matchmaking. It was way, way bigger. And because it was such a powerful tool for busting stories, I realized it was also extremely beneficial in helping restore relationships that were not in great shape, or recover relationships that were about to fall apart, or even help people that had decided to exit a relationship to do so consciously and still remain friends. Like Gerald, I mean, you and Maya Rose are a great example because both of you have ex-partners that you're extremely close to, and you can look at those relationships and go, my God, I'm so grateful for that person. It's a huge piece. And and looking at all that, I went, this is bigger. This is really bigger. And I started using it in my practice and using it with clients. And at the same time, I was I was discovering I was doing a lot of repair work. And over time it was beginning to kind of edge in on me, and I'm feeling like something's not right here. Something is missing. Something is we're kind of off target. And if I fast forward to today and we look around, we see that maybe about almost 80% of coaching and therapy and counseling services in the relationship world are, are directed at repairing relationships. I'm going, oh, okay. This reminds me of something. What is it this reminds me of? And then I went, oh God, it's the same as Western medicine. Western medicine, which is brilliant at fixing something that's broken, at finding a quick solution for a headache or a pain, setting a broken arm, you name it. We're really great at that. But if you compare it to Eastern philosophies, which are about how to make sure we're healthy so we stay healthy and we don't have to fix things, or being prepared in our life for situations so we don't go out there and just massacre ourselves. And and I went, this is there's something, this got to change. This is part of, I think, the challenge in our world is that we race into things without not enough information, and then we have to fix it later. And while I'm like feeling this for the last few years, couple years, I get surprised about 6 months ago by a friend of mine who calls me up and he goes, Larry, I just broke up with my partner. It's been 3 years, and I must be an idiot. I don't know. I mean, what do I do? How do I figure out if someone's a good match before I get into it? This is the second time I've been in a relationship that was this was 3 years. The one before was 5. I don't want to do this again. And I went, yeah, I can understand that. He said, so hey, here's what I did. I went on to Chat GPT. I used AI and I asked what are all the questions I can ask people to find all this stuff out? And he came up with like 300 questions and it was pretty amazing. He said, but I'm not a writer. I think there's a book here. And I said, there's people who put out books like that. He says, I know, I researched them. I went and looked at all the books. They don't do it. They ask questions, but there's something missing. He said, can you help me with this? And I was thinking about it, and I was just on my way to go to Ecuador to produce and direct a film. And I went, well, let me think about this, and I'll get back to you. He said, okay, but I'm going to do this whether you get involved or not. And I went, great, because it's probably going to be valuable. And I go and I leave on the trip. And while I'm on this trip and I'm working on this film, I cannot get the idea out of my mind. I come back to San Diego and I call him up and I went, okay, I'm in. And he said, great, what do we do? Let's get all these questions together. I went, no, it's not going to be quite like that. We'll use all these questions, but I'm in because there's a bigger story to tell. And what I realized when I was thinking about this, and after you hit me up with this idea, is I've actually been on target to write about this for probably almost 20 years, all the way back to when I first started with genetic energetics. And we created this thing called the relationship success scale. And it was created because outside scientists wanted to evaluate the impact, the efficiency, the accuracy of genetic energetics. And so, like, here I am 18 years ago, I had this. And then I thought I was also thinking, I'm going, and it was 10 years ago when I had a set of clients. I had a couple come to me and say, hey, you know what? And it surprised me because no one ever came to me for this reason before. They came and they said, we both been through relationships. We've both been divorced. It didn't go so well. And we really think that we've found our person. And what kind of questions can we ask to like really be prepared for like going into this relationship with our eyes wide open? And I went, oh, that's so refreshing. That's great. And I said, well, can you give me a week? Let me do some research. And I started to research and I couldn't find any good questions back then. Even though, and I completely forgot we had created this huge questionnaire. It was like 10 years earlier. And I just was focused on what have people created? Where can I go to find these questions? And I couldn't find them anywhere until I ran into a church group. And there it was. The pastor with this congregation had questions that he provided to new couples. Why? Because he wanted to keep his flock together. He went, look at it, if we have successful marriages, then they stay within the religion and they have children within the religion, and it keeps extending us. We survive. Judaism survives. Catholicism survives. All of them survive. The Mormon construction of how they stick with their families and keep them together. It's all about keeping the flock together, and that's where all the questionnaires were. And so I pulled them together and I gave them to this couple and we worked with it over time. And to this day, they're an amazing couple. So here I am being asked to do this book and I'm going, there's something else also calling. And what was calling was, how do we not just have great questions, but how do we get ourselves set up to ask them right? How do we drop in with those people we care about and get the information that we really, really need? Where do we need to be for that to happen? So the book, which is called Lasting, came together and it ended up in 2 volumes. And the very first part of it is called Illuminations. And the Illuminations ended up gave me an opportunity really to write everything that I've been learning and trying to develop over the last 40 years. and, and this all came from someone, calling me up and saying, hey, we need to write a book. And I was working on a different book. I didn't even have a plan for this. And so, I don't know what any of you think about synchronicities or things happening for a reason and a purpose. This one was one of the biggest ones, I think, in my life thus far, because it basically said, pull it together, let's come up with these answers or these questions, and let's come up with a set of disciplines. Not disciplines like, beating someone if they don't do something right, but disciplines like ways of doing things consistently right so that we get consistently quality high results. And that became in this book what's called the Illuminations. And there's 11 of them, and I wish I had time to share them all with all of you today and go into detail. But I want to go through them because I believe that these are the critical foundations for not just how we go into romantic relationships, but they're critical foundations for how we relate to anybody. How we relate to anybody. So who's game for that? Who's who's ready to hear these? All right, great. Thank you. So the first one is called inquiry. And this is really nurturing our curiosity to remain open for the surprise. And what does that mean? If we think about when we came into this world, think about when we came into this world. What were we? We started out as seekers, literally seeking for information, curiously. What were we seeking for first? Sustenance. Where's the milk, mom? You know, we didn't have any kind of judgment, anything at all that was imposing on us. We're just curious and looking, and we're in survival mode. But as we start to grow up, now we're finding out all different kinds of things that are being shown to us. Like if you cry, you don't get the same results. If you laugh and you say please, you get different results. And so we're being conditioned to look for behaviors, and we're being conditioned to actually judge when a behavior is good or not. We're being shown how to conclude as quickly as possible so that we can get what we want or desire as fast as possible. So, who can relate to doing that today? Raise your hands if you have any experience of this at all, where something shows up and it gets in front of you and you go, no, I'm not doing that. No, I got to go the other way. It's not going to happen. Or, oh, I don't think I trust those folks. I don't feel comfortable around them. I don't even know why I'm saying that, but I don't feel comfortable around them. So, what is that? That's just our conditioning, and we've been conditioned to conclude and judge. And because of that, we've taken this immense, incredible universe of possibility and we shrink it down into this little teeny ball of whatever it is we want to focus on at the time. And when we're in that little space, we don't see anything that's around it. We miss some of the most beautiful things when we're in judgment and conclusion. But when we're in pure inquiry, think of a child's mind, go back to the beginning, the beginner's mind. We don't, the child doesn't have any rules or any kind of things that they're working with. They're just curious as all get out. You say something, what's that mean? I mean, I would love to know it. Put in the chat how many of you were ever called annoying for asking a lot of questions. I think just about every one of us has gone, oh yeah, yep. I remember one time I had um, we had a kind of a carpool, and I was just one of the kids, like five kids jammed into a big car. And I remember the parent saying something to my mom when they picked us up and said, well, your son really asks a lot of questions. Like he's always asking questions. And I felt I felt like I was being made wrong. I wasn't supposed to do that, and even the term annoying is a disastrous term. Who wants to be called annoying? I don't. Definitely don't. But when we're kids, we ask lots of questions. There's a very specific difference between the questions that we asked in the child's mind from the questions that we often ask today. And that's that when we're a kid, we're just curious. We're not looking to prove anything. We're looking to discover. We're exploring. We're just in this space of, wow, what's this mean? What's this mean? I mean, imagine you're in a sandbox and you're digging around and you're building things and you throw some sand and oops, you didn't realize there was a rock in there and now you're in trouble for throwing some sand at somebody and now you made wrong, but you don't care. You go back and you keep playing in the sandbox. Today, I like to think of my life as being just like that, only my sandbox is a lot bigger, right? And I might have a little bit more discernment that I can offer in how I play in it. But the key, the absolute key of inquiry is being curious, not looking for proof, not out there asking questions to prove that something is a certain way, but asking questions to be surprised by the truth. Because if we stop looking for proof, we hear everything. We hear things that we never knew we could hear. We discover things about each other that are huge, amazing gifts that are so joyful and so delicious that otherwise we wouldn't see if we were just looking to figure out, is this person the right size, the right shape, the right religion, and looking for all these specific things that we want, and then checking them off if we have them, and not checking them if we haven't seen them, and just staying on that path. As soon as we stop looking for proof, the real joys, the real nuggets, the gold, the diamonds in our life show up everywhere. So the first illumination for all of us is to be really, really curious. And what that means when it comes to asking questions is if you ask someone a question, don't ask them looking for a particular answer. Ask them for their answer and listen. And when you hear it, I guarantee you that the first thing they tell you is not the answer. You got to go deep. There's going to be a why. If I'm talking to Paige and I go, Paige, what you've been working on is so amazing. How well is it going? Are you enjoying it? And she goes, it's going okay. And I just settle for okay. I don't really find out anything. And I'm no benefit to her at all other than someone that just showed some curiosity for a moment. But if I go, okay, what do you mean by okay? When I hear that word, I know that's like you would have said phenomenal if it was phenomenal. So what's a okay mean, Paige? Come on, fess up. And then she starts talking and gives me insight to what she's working on and the progress and things that are going on in her world. And all of a sudden, there's this huge flower opening of information. And not only am I discovering things about Paige that I didn't even know I wanted to know, she gets to be in a place where she's being heard and seen. And so, inquiry by itself, if we did nothing else but just started asking questions for the sure purpose of being surprised by the answers, it changes the world. It literally changes the world. It simplifies complexity. It gives us connectivity that we didn't even know was possible. That's the first illumination in the book. The next one, any questions, by the way? If someone has a comment or questions, please chime in.
I would love to just kind of add my my thoughts on this because it's so important. Like this idea of just being curious about your partner. The way that Maya Rose and I experience it, we call it unknowing each other. You know, like when you've been together with someone for a long time, you start to get this pre-framed idea of who they are, and that's often where our biggest challenges are. Is we think we understand, we think we know them, and be good, but really all we have is a story that we've created about them, and so we practice this idea of unknowing each other, which is that art of inquiry. And so Maya Rose and I, we have this game that we play every single night, every single day, every time we're traveling, every time we're, she's in Arizona, I'm here, and we're on the phone, or when we're together with our friends. But we call it the question game. And it's the simplest game, but it's always profound that it gives us these insight perspectives to parts of their world that we can't see, right? And some of the questions could be like, so share with me, what was the hardest part of your day today? Or what was that moment today that made you feel most alive? Or what's something you're really proud of right now? Just simple questions like that just open up the space for unveiling who they are. And then one of my mentors, who's a communication and sales coach, he shared something really profound, which is no one says anything by accident, you know? And so sometimes they might say just a word, or they might mention a story, just like glance over it, but there's a purpose and there's often something behind that story. And so it's like really fun to like get curious when people use for certain words or they mention certain things. It's like, oh, tell me more about that. What was that? And you just like touch on the tiniest little aspect of a sentence that they shared, and then it unveils this whole wild and incredible history, And I saw a mentor do this with when he was interviewing this woman, and she mentioned, yeah, I was really impacted by my mom, and she just kept going. It's like, well, tell me more about your mom. You said you were really impacted by her. How were you impacted? And then this woman just started bawling. It's like, oh my gosh, my mom had me when she was 18 years old, and she had to flee from, Bulgaria or whatever this country was, and and she told this like deeply awe-inspiring like journey where we were all bawling, but we would have missed it if he hadn't listened to those words. I'm really inspired by my mom, right? And then she just kept talking, but he paused. It's like, tell me more about your mom, because she gave him this little clue, and I think that's what you're talking about. Is like when we're in communication, whether I'm having a conversation with my friend Josh, or I'm, having a deep, loving experience with Maya Rose, or like it's someone I've just barely met for the first time. If we can listen for the clues that they're offering, and then just go a layer deeper and a layer deeper. That's where the real treasure comes from. It's just like playing the question game and like listening for the clues of their soul that they're dropping right in front of us. But most people miss because they just like pass on and aren't really paying attention when they listen.
It's so true, Gerald. It's so true. We have we're building a game called the Illumination game to go with the book. and, and it's going to be a card deck. And it's designed to really take these simple questions and go deep with them. And it's, someone said, well, how long is this game going to last? And I was just being kind of a smartass at the beginning. And I went, a lifetime? And I went, well, people might not buy a game that's going to last a lifetime. And I went, okay, well, we're going to have to set some rules so there's a playful kind of thing in there so we can whittle it down. But
Paige also had something you want to share, right, Paige?
yeah,
Well, I just was thinking on the opposite side of what not to do is I find that I've been in relationships where I just think, well, if I ask this, I know what they're going to say, right? And that's the trap that we get into of, well, I've known this person for 20 years, and so if I ask this question, they'll probably say this, or if I bring this up, or if I I'm struggling with this, they'll probably just say this, so I just won't even say it. So I just wanted to be the bad example, what not to do.
you know what? That's I don't want to call that a bad example. That's being human, right? I mean, we all do that. Go, oh no, I don't want to say this to this person because it's going to bring on this conversation. And in partnerships, when there's something that is disturbing or challenging, and you go, well, this is the way they always respond. You have this experience, right? And almost been conditioned to expect it. Well, they always respond this way, and I don't like that response, so I'm not even going to ask the question. And so this is where resentment and those things build up, right? Here's the fun thing is that if you go in now thinking, well, I'm going to probably get this response, but I'm going to go in with inquiry. When you get the response, take it the next level deeper. Instead of just settling for that response, you go, so I'm curious why you said that. I mean, you've said that before, and I'm curious, why did you say that? And they may tell you, well, because if I don't say it that way, you're never going to listen. And then you go deeper. So why do you believe that? And you keep going with it, it's just like the annoying whys, if you will, but it's that every time we ask why, and we're truly curious, like we're not leading the person into anything else than wanting to understand fully, you will get to the core of a situation that 99.9% of the time results in a deeper connection and understanding.
I want to just add to this really quickly because it's so easy when we get locked in our perception and locked in our perspective to believe that our view is right. And when someone else thinks something different or does something different, then they're wrong. But in that perception, there's this inherent adversarial like experience we have with them, and it could be like a simple way in terms of how someone folds laundry or someone, cooks breakfast or what their beliefs are about food or, like whether they lock the door or don't lock the door. Like there's all of these set ways that we just do life differently. And it's like really just such a practice of getting curious and rather than being in judgment and saying, like I wonder why this person believes that. I wonder why you do it that way. I wonder why that really came from, because sometimes they don't even know. But actually, when you get curious enough, like you get down to the heart of it, and for me, like the whole definition of intimacy, intimacy is this willingness to be fully seen and the willingness to fully see. Like when I'm most fully intimate with my Rose, it's when I'm curious, like, why is she so panicked every time we leave the house of whether or not the stove is off, right? In my mind, because I've never had that experience, I think this is ridiculous. This is crazy. This is stupid. Why is she nervous about the stove being off, right? Like, I've never once in 50 years had a problem with the stove being left on, but it's like a fear for her. And like, if I'm just in judgment, then I'm like, I'm in separation, but I'm like, oh, tell me about that. Like, where did that come from? And then she tells me this tender little story about when she was young and she was like, heard this story about this little girl that burnt in a fire and like it affected her so much. And ever since that, she had like crippling OCD where she had to check the stove like 3 or 4 times every night just to make sure it was off. And I was like, I gotta like fall in love with this like little girl who was afraid. And it made me feel closer to her rather than being judgment. It's like, oh my God, do we have to go check the stove again? Right?
You
It
have
all
this complete understanding,
Yeah,
right?
it's like, oh
There's
my
a
God,
piece that
yeah,
comes
let's
in.
let's go make sure that little girl's okay. Like it just like created like this different space of intimacy just because of curiosity rather than judgment. Like no one does anything without a reason. We all have reasons for every single thing we do, even if it's an unconscious reason. And when someone shares with us the deeper reason why, it's like this really sacred gift of being able to peer inside someone's soul.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's so true. So if we now adopt this discipline of inquiry, we also have to take a look at other things that get in the way. And one of the things it's the third illumination in this, I'm going to jump over the second one right now, and we call it clarity. And it's all about labeling. And if there's anything that can stop a conversation or an inquiry quickly, it's a label. And we put labels on almost everything, right? And I'm not talking about the labels that are on the side of a can, right? So the label on the side of the can is there so that we know whether we're buying beans or corn or whatever it might be. But we put labels on people, and here's the challenge: we're not cans of food. And so as soon as a label is put on us, it's like locking us in a box and saying you can't be anything else because this is your label. One of the just really challenging labels that's very popular today is narcissist. I just in the whole world of psychology, I haven't seen a word be overused as much as narcissism and people being labeled as a narcissist. Now, all humans have narcissistic behaviors at some point in time or another, from tiny little bits to large. And yes, there are clinical narcissists, but they're far and few between. Yet the term gets thrown around all the time. Now, how would you feel if someone called you a narcissist? Anybody like that? Raise your hand if you like that. I bet I don't see any hands go up now. No, not a single one, right? So there are lots and lots of labels that get thrown around. I was on a call the other day and someone was really, really making a big deal about spiritual bypassing. It's another wonderful term that gets thrown out there. And they were so attached to spiritual bypassing that they actually were their own definition of a spiritual bypass. It's like the conversation about attachments. If you've ever heard someone say, you know, you just shouldn't be attached to things. But they're so attached to the fact that we shouldn't be attached to things that they're attached to having no attachments. Now, does that make any sense to anybody? Not really, right? But terms get thrown around and labels get put upon us. And as soon as we label something, we have taken this inquiry path and crippled it. And so clarity, finding the true gifts when we let go of the labels, is a major illumination for us. And notice, just as you go through your day, you know, what you might put a label on. And especially notice how you might label people. If someone comes up and you think, well, how do I feel about that person? Well, if you're describing just the feeling, that's great. But if you come up with, well, that person's an asshole, wow, they have no chance at that point. Now, maybe they were really not very pleasant the last time you saw them. So they've exhibited being not pleasant, but that doesn't mean they're a asshole, right? And the person doesn't have a chance to even show up in any way, shape, or form if we have a label. So getting rid of those labels, or you know, calling someone, well, you're just being a child, you're being a big baby. And how often do parents give their kids labels? You stand around and just be kind of like a fly on the wall in a elementary school class or a kindergarten class and listen to a teacher or listen to the parents talk to the kids and all the different labels they give them. And you just be going, oh my God. Oh my God. I was told that all the time, and it took me years to get over that. And it's happening all the time. How many labels did we have for people during the presidential campaigns? Unbelievable. And do we know for sure who any of these people are? Have we ever had a conversation with them in depth? We have to do some serious research to find out who and how they do life. But if we stop at the label that someone gave them, and then we make a decision how to vote or how to support them or be an advocate of them, well, we've crippled our own community, our own world, our own country. So labels are devastating. Just one more of those little inquiry pieces. Another thing that's in here, another illumination, is non-judgment, right? And non-judgment is about embracing the unknown without assumptions, without conclusions. Inquiry is curiosity. Staying out of judgment opens the door to discover all kinds of things. And Gerald, when he's describing Maya Rose, when she's like being panicked or stressed about, you know, did I leave the burner on? It would really be easy for him to say, to just go, why do you do that? Just don't do that. You don't need to do that. You know, or you're just being paranoid. So now you have a label and a judgment simultaneously. And because you didn't do that, because you gave yourself the opportunity to go deeper, you got the story behind it. And that's precious. It's really, really precious. I remember in genetic energetics, one of the things we look at is what we call financial, um, just the relationship we have to money. And I had a partner, the wife of my children. We were married 18 glorious years, and then we went our own directions. But I remember when I first ran this profile, and it said she was non-conservative financial logic, which means that she shouldn't ever really have to worry about money, but she seriously worried about money, and I didn't understand it. And then I found out that twice in her life, talk about leaving the burner on being a problem, twice in her life, once at like 5 years old, the home she was living in burned down. They left, they came back, the home was in cinders. And in her teens, it happened again. So she lost two homes to fires. So at that point, she had a whole different relationship to putting money aside and being concerned about her survival and having a roof over her head. And until I knew that, I'm going, it just seemed like she was really paranoid, or like you were just seeing, why are you so concerned about these things? And explained it instantly. And honestly, I couldn't even relate to what it's like to having my home disappear, but hearing the stories even made me panicky about it sometimes. and it was so intense. I could feel what she was feeling, that I had to develop my own um, ways of dealing with a fear that I never had before. So we have to be careful not to judge. We also have to be careful that how we deal with differences. This is another one of our illuminations. Differences, you know, I'm white, someone else is black, another person's is Asian, another person is a Native American. And is it a good or bad thing to call out and give them those names or those titles? If they choose that they want them, at the end of the day, we're all human. And so if we're looking at differences and seeing differences, we don't get to see below the skin. And that obviously creates bigotry, and it creates division and separation. Men and women do that with each other. The Me Too movement, it had its purpose, and it created devastation at the same time, because it created massive separation between men and women as each were trying to defend themselves. What if they could have done it together without creating the differences, but finding the similarities, finding the joy and the amazing benefits of the things that are the same, and being able to embrace those things that are not the same. But looking for differences get in the way. And this all brings us down to, how do we communicate well? Our communication, if we're judging and concluding, if we're using labels, if we're finding differences, there's no way we're going to have a really quality communication. So communication, which seems to be so difficult, or conflicts, which seems to be so impassable, really can get diminished to simple ways to find solutions where we can embrace each other, or make a choice that, you know what, I completely disagree with the way you like to do things. It's not my way, but I get that it's yours. You can have them. I'm not trying to take them away from you, but I know when it comes to certain things that we want to do, I'm not going to want to do that with you, because we do it differently. That's okay. I'm okay with it. I can look at you and the things that I find that are really astounding and incredible. And there's some other things that I know that don't work with what I've discovered, and I'm okay with it. And from that place, communications change radically. There's a really popular word that gets used a lot these days, which is boundaries, right? We need to establish our boundaries. And then we need to expect people to follow our boundaries. What do you think is the fatal flaw in that statement? Anybody have some feedback?
I've
Raise your
got
hand and speak to it if you like.
I've got feedback on that. I've got feedback on everything, but I think boundaries inherently are what keep people away, right? What keep people out, would actually prevent intimacy. And so my goal with my rose is to like eliminate all boundaries and to do that. On the other hand, with certain people, the boundaries do keep us safe, keep us safe from the people that we don't want in from getting in. But that's like my perception is boundaries inherently block people from intimacy with us.
It's definitely a great distinction. I'm just about right on the same page with you. I look at boundaries as having a value, but I also think that boundaries are not cement walls, right? A boundary is something you set so that you can test it. So that you can go, does this work for me? Does this create the environment that feels healthiest for me? But here's the biggest distinction. People will talk about boundaries as if it's something that the rest of us should absolutely be aware of and adhere to. Like, I have a boundary and you crossed my boundary. How dare you? So, where's the mistake in that one? Erica, take your mic off. I want to hear what you're saying.
You can't read people's minds.
What's that?
You can't read people's minds and just
No, you
know
can't.
automatically what their boundaries are. And the other thing is that it's about intention also, because when you are sharing a relationship with somebody in any realm, whether it's at work, friendship, intimate, everybody has different types of inner boundaries or lack of. And I think
Right.
that's the other thing is I think we are responsible for our own boundaries, but we don't necessarily have to spew it out on everybody and make them responsible to not cross them. I think we have to maybe not put ourselves in positions of situations where we know this is such a great topic because I have so many friends that are all so different, and there's just certain people I just discuss certain things with because it's why that's not a commonality we have, and it's not something where maybe they're open or I'm open, or you know what I mean. Find those areas of commonality where you can be open and sharing and growing with each other. Not where's the difference that that keeps us apart. Does that make
Yeah, you
sense?
just covered a lot of territory there. That's for sure. So I'll give you one distinction just to come. Thank you for that, Eric. I appreciate it. Here's the simple distinction with boundaries. First of all, we cannot ever set a boundary for someone else. That's the illusion. We can set a boundary for ourselves. Go to town, test your boundaries, create it, see how it feels, try them on. But if you want someone to follow your boundaries, then you have to take a step further and have, and we all heard these terms, come to an agreement. Okay? So if I make an agreement with my partner and I say, I'm going to adhere to that, this is a set of rules that we want for our family or for our lifestyle. We're going to be monogamous or non-monogamous, whatever you decide, and or whatever we decide together, then that's our agreement. Then if one person decides to change that or go against it without conversation about it, that can be a problem. That can be a real challenge. There's an integrity issue there. But if it's just a boundary and I've set a boundary and I expect you to follow it, big mistake. So we're really after, if you've got a boundary that's that important to you, then you are responsible for turning that boundary into an agreement with those people that you want to have hold that space for you. And if you don't have agreement, you don't have shit. You really don't. And then claiming someone crossed your boundary, sorry, you're out of line. It's not okay. Go back to understanding what your boundary is about. Help them understand why you want it and let them know what the agreement is. Now you're good to go. How difficult is that? But I think some people want to set boundaries and they're afraid to ask someone to agree to them. They're fearful that the person will go, no, I can't do that. The best boundary setting that I've heard people do is when someone says, this is what I need, and it's not what I've been getting from you. And what I really need to feel comfortable is this, this, and this. Can we do that? And the person turns around and goes, well, everything that you said I can do except for this. Can we shift it so that when it comes to how you want me to show up, when you want me to call you or check in with you, isn't at 3 o'clock every day, but it's once a day and it's after work kind of thing, whatever. And the person will go, yeah, I can do that. Now they have an agreement, right? It's no longer a boundary. It's an understanding. It's agreement they have with each other. And part of that agreement should be able to agree to change it if it's not working, right? If they're both consensual. It's so simple. And how do we get to them? Inquiry. Be curious. Ask questions, and then we don't have to be steeped in fear. This is what brings us to another one of the illuminations, which is called courageous intimacy. And Gerald, I've heard you and Maya Rose talk about intimacy so much, and I love the conversation. To me, courageous intimacy is like a combination of being radically fully expressed, radical honesty, high integrity, authentic, unapologetically expressed, right? And at the same time, courageous. So it means that and vulnerable, right? It means that we're willing to be completely seen. We're willing to be wrong. We're willing to change. We're willing to grow. We're committed to growth and emergence in our own evolution. And by the way, if you're not committed to your emergence and your growth and your own evolution, you're dead because you are not living, right? You have stopped. And a lot of people stop. And you can see them with her. You can see the dis-ease come in, not just emotionally, but physically. So we have to be ready to grow. We have to be excited for growth if we really want to have a long, fruitful, joyous life. So courageous intimacy is going when something really scares the bejesus out of you. God, just like, I don't know if I can have this conversation. Just do it and step into it, because every time, no, I can't say every time, almost every time, most of the time when we step into something that really scares us, the result ends up being a solution that is so far beyond what we expected. If we're worried about being honest because we think it's just going to destroy a relationship, you'll hear story after story after story after story of people that have said, God, I'm so scared to tell her. I'm so scared to tell him. And I finally did, and he went, I got you. I got you. Thank you for sharing. I could feel that there was something there. And I just want you to know, like, I care for you. My commitment for you is as long as the day, as long as life is. I'm not going anywhere. Thank you for sharing. And then you go deep from there. That is like, it's almost such a common story. It begins to be laughable when you look back and go, I can't believe I was scared to do that. Gerald, I think I tell people all the time about the story you tell about when you first met Maya Rose and said, I need to tell you everything, right? I just have to share with you all these things that I'm scared to death to share. And knowing that she was either going to embrace you or not, but you had to do that. That was courage. And courageous intimacy to me is its lifeblood. That's the pinnacle of where we want to get with our relationships. So we passed over, any questions so far? Any comments? Anybody? We passed over communications, which very quickly, and it's one of the illuminations. It's probably one of the longer chapters in the book, and it's the one area where I go into genetic energetics. And genetic energetics, and thank you for the introduction around that. That's been pretty much and still is my dharma path, I think, in this world. It's the reason why I'm here and the work I do. And there are specific energetic codings and genetic energetics. I'm going to give all of you guys a link to where you can go and get your own profile. But in communication, there are lots of tools out there. And I went searching. I went back through all of my different tools that I had, from NLP to hypnotherapy, excuse me, to the vowels system, to just so many different ways that I've had various tools to help me communicate better with other people. And they're listed in here. The ones that are the most effective are part of this chapter. Introducing them as something that we really, as human beings wanting to connect deeply with others, we really need to take the time to learn the various tools that are out there. In genetic energetics, we discovered there's two different communication styles. Now, so I'm going to share this piece with you. Energetically, we have two different vibrations, and they're defined genetically for us at birth. One group of us, 50% of the population, is what we call structural talking style. That's me. I use my words to mean exactly what I want to say. And if someone's talking to me, I interpret what they're saying based on the dictionary definition of the word. And I will build communication. I will add more words, probably more words than a lot of people want to hear, just to make sure that what I'm communicating is exactly what I'm intending. Now, I'm structural. That's what structural people do. The other half of the population is what we call figurative. They may be amazing wordsmiths, writers, designers, even engineers, intellectual property attorneys, all kinds of things where words are important. But at the end of the day, what's most important to them is a conveyance of emotion. They need to know that what they're feeling is being expressed. And to have the feeling come through in the words they're hearing makes a huge difference. So if I just talk to you without any elevation in my voice, I'm just talking like this, and I tell you, it's important that you know these, and these things are really something that I think that you should study, and you should be courageously intimate and gosh, connect deeply. If I'm talking to another person that's structural, they hear all those words and they go, I know what he means. The figurative person is kind of going, was I even supposed to listen? Like, I just saw his mouth moving. I hear all these words going. Am I even supposed to listen to that? But if I go, oh my God, this is so important. I mean, this is so important. This is not, please listen to this because it means so much. And the level of connection that we get to have, God, I can't even tell you how, I don't even know how to express it. Now the figurative person is going, well, why didn't you talk to me like that all the time? Like that was, I just felt more connected to you in that like 20 seconds than I did in the last hour that you were talking. So these two different communication styles use words differently and they express things differently. And when you understand the differences, this is the important part, you can accommodate for them. No, I'm never going to be a figurative talking style person, but I can gush. I can learn to gush. I can learn to, let my emotions out a little bit more. In fact, I'm discovering that I kind of like it. It's fun. And it feels, and I connect with people that I wouldn't normally connect with, and they actually like to talk with me more. Do I do that with everybody? No, when I'm with another structural person, I just kind of drop into using my words and we're sitting there understanding each other totally. We may not disagree, I mean, not agree on things, but we never have misunderstandings between the two communication styles, there's often misunderstandings. So if we're attempting to communicate with someone, if it's our beloved, if it's our child, if it's someone we're working with, it's someone we care about deeply, and it's super important for us to connect with them, we need to understand what they are, not just who they are, the what, the energetic pieces of what. It's genetically coded. We need to understand and know what that is so that we can accommodate for it. And it'd be great if they understand as well. So I'm going to be talking to Gerald, and if we're into a call for an hour, that's a long time for us if it's just a personal call. It really is. And I love it. But there's a point where it's like, yeah, I think the call's over now. and and I know more than anything that, and I don't know, this isn't a make wrong, it's that we have these different communication styles, and that period of time was perfect. Yes, perfect. And so I don't have to go, well, why did we get off the phone so quickly? I wasn't really done talking. Gerald might have been completely full. And I got to have to acknowledge that. This is someone I care for deeply. If I don't acknowledge it, then I'm going to be going, have some kind of rub around it. And maybe I'm going to shame myself or blame myself for not talking properly. No, no. We want to get away from shame and blame. And one of the things that genetic energetics does for us is provide insight into how we speak, the speed we speak, the way we run our lives, the way we handle money, the way we sexually engage, chemistry, which is one of the illuminations in the lasting book. All of those things are essential for us to understand so we don't go into our crazy stories. And most of the time, it's our crazy stories and the beliefs that those stories exist because an experience we had us establish a belief about what it meant. And now we have a story wrapped around it. And if we're stuck in that story and you don't fit it, and we have separation. And I think life is too beautiful and too glorious to have those moments. If you decide to have separation, do it because it's discernment. Back to what Erica was saying. There are people that I only want to do certain things with them. That's okay. Understanding why is glorious. That's the piece. Chemistry, by the way, attractions, we call it, have a fascinating impact on us human beings. And if you've ever looked at the research on chemistry and what we call attractions in genetic energetics, it comes from 6 neurotransmitters and hormones: dopamine, serotonin, testosterone, norepinephrine, PEA, oxytocin. All of these things get elevated, and this is what it looks like when you have chemistry with someone. Oh, oh my God. I love you so much. I just want to be with you. Did you just say, you didn't say that? No, you wouldn't have said that. No, no. So we're sitting here high on these brain chemicals, and they're delicious. They're wonderful, and they're addictive. They're super addictive. And they can throw us off because chemistry will steer us in different directions with different people. And again, it's just one of those things to understand where we can embrace it. Once we know it, then we know how to navigate with it. And it gives us the ability to go deeper and connect deeper. So in lasting, in the book that we just wrote, the 11 illuminations, I'm going to tell you just one more after this because I think it's the one piece that is the critical piece for any relationship to last over time. But in all of these different illuminations, they're all setting us up to be able to go into the second part of the book, which is all questions. And it's questions in a whole variety of areas of our life. And the whole purpose of this, again, is to prepare for a quality relationship, to go into it with our eyes wide open, to know who and what someone is so well that we can go, I am so excited that we're going to do life together, or we're going to attempt to do life together, and we're going to go out and experiment and explore together. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Or the converse is like, I am so glad that we went through all these questions, because you and I mean, as much as I care for you, there's no way in the world we could live with each other. Oh God, and I thought we could. But now that I really understand your values and your principles and your mission and your purpose, and I see how misaligned we are or how different we are, wow, I can embrace it. And I hope we're friends forever, but let's not be romantic partners. And you make that decision before you go 2 or 3 years into it and discover the truth. It's the whole purpose of this book. All right. The Illumination I'm excited to share with you. I'm excited about all of them. Can you tell? Is it Samira? Go ahead and unmute yourself. You have a question. I want to hear.
Yeah, I have a question, a practical question. I had my profile made by you, and I'm not in a relationship. I lost my partner, and in the slowly, it's getting time to find a new partner. Not easy at my age. And I meet people, and I have no idea about their profile. And you have, I think you told me I have a broken picker.
That's the chemistry piece. Okay.
And so I'm very conscious and very careful not to go head over heels into something and first create a friendship. And then still I don't know. Is it now, so is there a way to find out what the profile is of the other person? Or need I run towards you to figure out with everyone I meet what their profile is? Because I was wondering about that. Is there a way to find out?
Yes, there is. So the personal energetic profile, those are free. So you run your own, and all you have to do is ask someone else what their birth date is, and they'll give you their opposite gender biological parents' birth date, which sometimes just kind of weirds people out. They'll go, now what are you asking for this for? And then you just have to go, look at this is just this really cool system that I love using, and you'll love it. You'll have fun with it. I promise I'll share it with you. Just tell me your birth date and tell your mom, your biological mother's birth date. And a lot of men, I'll tell you, 50% of men will go, I know the month and day. I don't know the year. So they may have to go get it, right? They may have to go get it. But you can run the profiles without that. That's just the chemistry piece. So, Samira, we found out that your father is a different communication style than you are, which means that's where the broken picker piece comes from. So instant chemistry shows up for you when you meet someone that is the same genetic profile as your father, right?
Oh, wonderful.
And so
Not a
it
good
doesn't matter
idea.
whether you ever knew your father or even liked your father. It's a
no.
genetic coding. Okay.
Yeah.
Now here's the deal. People will say, well, I don't want to have a broken picker. That's not fun. That's not gonna. That's what. That's not okay. And so what we discovered is that when you get aligned with someone, when you start to get in a place where energetically you vibrate, you harmonize, then the chemistry, those brain chemicals will start to elevate or shift to the point that chemistry shows up. And sometimes it might be a year later, right? But over time, the chemistry will be there. There's only one thing that once chemistry starts, once it's there, there's only one thing that causes it to go away, and that's pain. And pain does that because it's another neurotransmitter that literally causes those others, dopamine, oxytocin, testosterone, all of those I list, they shift, they change radically when the neurotransmitter related to pain happens. And it doesn't matter whether it's physical pain, like a broken arm or a cut or a bruise or an accident, or it's emotional pain, which could be intense conflict or stress or a number of things. So I mean, we can spend a lot of time talking about just chemistry, but I want to jump into this one juicy thing. All right, Gerald, you ready for this? This is my favorite.
So ready, bring it on.
It's called co-creation.
I love it.
And co-creation, guys, this is, mm, to me, is the biggest discovery of a lifetime. A lot of people talk about co-creation and they think, well, yeah, look at we built this company together, or we bought a house and we co-created it. It was our co-creation. But in reality, what they might have done was bought a house, they found the house, and then one person designed the kitchen, the other one designed the man cave. Another person designed the front entry area, and another one did the landscaping. And they had their individual creations, their individual tasks. And then they call that co-creation. Or you'll go into a business and say, we co-created this business together, but it didn't really happen quite like that. There was a business design, and everybody took on certain tasks, and they came back and they contributed, right? They were massive contributors, and they cooperated, they worked together to get to a solution. And they call it co-creation, but they're missing the piece. Co-creation has 5 ingredients, and they all have to be there. When they are there, it creates a scenario that becomes like a Kodak moment. Who knows what a Kodak moment is? Kodak moment, for those that don't know, it's like you have a picture that you took 15 years ago, right? And you're going through your boxes of things, cleaning them out, and you get this picture and you look at it and you go, oh my God, I remember that day. I remember my daughter was laughing so hysterically, the rest of us just broke up and we had tears running down our face. It was a warm winter day and we were outside. The sun was shining. I had to get a hat because I had no hair and so I was going to burn my head if I didn't get a hat. You have all this stuff that you remember from something that happened 15 years ago that you totally was not on your mind until you have that picture, right? It just never goes away. And it's priceless. It's priceless. So co-creation starts with must be 2 people or more, and it's together. Oh my God, I just set off balloons. 2 people or more together. So they're simultaneously together, not working separately on projects, but with each other. That's the first piece. The second is they must be in inquiry, like open for the surprise. They're ready for the surprise. Whatever they're deciding to go after, they don't have a clear definition. It's not like, okay, we're going to cut out this piece of paper so it's 8.5 by 11 inches. Okay, let's co-create that piece of paper. No, sorry, doesn't work that way. You already had the shape and the size of it. It's more like, let's build a journal. I'm not sure what it wanted to look like. And so one scavenges for different kinds of paper, another one scavenges for a kind of binder for it. And then they bring it together and they go, wow, I never thought it was going to be shaped like this, but this is amazing. Right. So that you have to be in inquiry, like not looking for proof, open to the surprise. When you do that, what emits from that, what comes from that is serendipity. Serendipity is the key thing. This is the piece that is absolutely essential. Without it, you don't have co-creation. You have something that's like it, but it's not the same. Serendipity, if that word is new for some of you, or you're not sure what it means, but it's kind of like you're walking down the street and there's a $20 bill on the ground. You go, oh my God, $20. And you look around going, wonder if someone dropped it, right? And you go, I guess it's for me. It must be my $20 bill. So something you weren't expecting that has value shows up and it delights you. That's serendipity. So you get people together, inquiry, the surprise, which is the serendipity, and the next piece is celebration. You must celebrate it. You celebrate it. You find the joy and the gratitude in it. You live that part and you just enjoy it fully. And then the last piece is you let it go. Because if we hang on to it like we should do it again, then you get in the way of the next serendipitous co-creative moment. So here's an example. My partner and I go to bed at night. It's been a long evening. We're thinking it's tomorrow's Sunday. Sundays we usually get up and we go out and we find a restaurant to have brunch. We get up in the morning, we look at each other and go, all right, so where do we want to go for brunch? And kind of go, well, you know what? We have all these leftovers that we got from the last couple dinners we went to. And I'm kind of feeling good in my robe. Let's go downstairs and let's make breakfast. So we go down, the two of us together, and we go into the kitchen and we start pulling things out. We pull out the leftovers. Then I find the pancake mix. And she goes, oh, this is great. I just bought this buttermilk. Right. And we have all this fresh fruit and we start cutting up fruit and we have the fried potatoes from the leftovers and a little bit of bacon from the leftovers. We start putting all this together and we put it on this plate and we get really, we get playful and we decorate it. And we go, I'm going to get some fresh juice. Can we get some fresh juice? I'll be right back. I'm going to get some oranges. And we fresh squeeze some juice. We put all this down on the table and we sit down and we go, oh my gosh, wait a second. You get your camera and you take a picture of the breakfast. It's so cool. And you sit down and you go, you know what? We could not have bought this breakfast anywhere. It would never have been this great or this fun. And we sit down in gratitude, experience it. We took a Kodak moment picture of it and we enjoyed breakfast. Will we ever forget that moment? No. No, we won't. And here's the deal with relationships, partnerships specifically. There has to be co-creation happening, not like once a year, but often. Give ourselves time to be with each other in that space of curiosity where things serendipitously happen, where we find surprises and joy that we can celebrate. If we don't, what ends up happening to those relationships over time is it feels like something is missing. And indeed it is. So that co-creation, that ability to share and experience that with your partner is lifeblood. Because if it's not there, what ends up happening is someday after maybe a year or longer in a relationship and you're feeling like, we do a lot of work together. We're good partners. We're really good partners. And then one or the other of us goes to a party and we meet someone there and we have one of these wonderful conversations with someone you didn't know and start talking about ideas. And all of a sudden there's a co-creation that shows up and you go, oh my God, I've been missing this. And in that moment you go, this is my partnership. I mean, I'm with the wrong person. I don't even know why. We just know that heartbeat, that juicy, wonderful experience that's so important to us, that fills us fully with gratitude and joy and excitement, has not been fully there. Now, most people are not aware of what's going on. They just make a decision at that point that I think that I've come to an end with this relationship. And they start looking elsewhere. This is such a common thing. And it happens not just in romantic partnerships, it also happens in business. You go in and you work in a company and they have you giving these all fun things to do and you with a team you're co-creating and then it shifts. And why do you stick around in the company? Because the pay is good, right? It's job security, but you're not happy there. And as soon as someone offers you something that seems like it's a new expression, you're gone in a heartbeat. For a moment, I want all of you to take a second and think about your childhood with your family. And just allow yourself to, What's something that comes to mind? Something that like makes you smile that you remember from your childhood? Just let it come out, whatever it is. Think about that. What happened then in that moment? Why is that memory so strong? Why is it so dear to you? Who wants to share? Samir, go ahead.
I think you're talking about experiencing joyful aliveness. It's one of the things that we can't live without, joyful aliveness.
Yeah. Oh, for
And
sure.
uh,
Absolutely.
so if I remember moments that I was in this huge swing and I was going so high that I thought I could fly, or I was on the horseback of my pony and we were running so fast together, feeling so connected and feeling the wind through the hair. Those are moments for me that connect me to joyful aliveness.
So
Co-creation can be one of them as well.
and so the part with the swing, you're on your own. So that fits into your first description, the joyful aliveness,
Aliveness,
right?
yeah, joyful aliveness. We can't live without.
We
I think
can't.
that's
And
one
the
of the
piece with your
reasons.
horse, though, that's co-creative. So you have two beings, right, that are experiencing something together. And those people that are really tuned into horses will know that you can feel that horse in that expression.
Yes.
And you'll remember that horse forever, right?
Mhm.
For me, I didn't do a lot of close things with my family. There was very little, but there was one thing that my mom and I did. We put together crossword puzzles.
Mhm.
Or not crossword puzzle. What do you call it? Um, you know, where you just there's another name for them. The just the
Jigsaw,
different.
jigsaw,
What's that?
jigsaw.
Jigsaw puzzles. That's it. Thank you. We put together jigsaw puzzles, and we used to get them, and she would put the lid away so we couldn't see the picture of it. And I remember to this day that the fondest memories I have of my mom was doing those jigsaw puzzles. And it just sticks with me. I remember the room, I remember the card table. I think I still have it out in the garage. It's like 50 years old. That, you know, it's just like that sticks with me. And that one piece is like such a beautiful connection that, you know, she's passed years ago. And I can just remember that how much I really felt like I had a mom, if you will, right? And she gave me so much from that. And it's just that one little thing. And so, Samira, you think about horseback riding. Do you still ride horses today?
Oh, I have been riding 2 years ago in South Africa, and I learned that I was not as young as I used to be. I had a hard week after that. So
But I bet you have a beautiful connection with
it
horses,
was
right?
lovely. It was lovely. It was good to
Yeah,
do that. It was after a difficult time. So
right.
I was trying to find my joyful aliveness back at that time, and I did. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Well, you know what? I'm just realizing what time it is. Oh my gosh. We've we've just been going along and I didn't cover everything, Gerald. I
What?
didn't.
There's more? There's
There's
more,
more.
right? I
There's
love
the
it.
piece that we teased everybody with, which is love, and I'll just leave you with this one. It goes very deep, and it's the second illumination in the book. If you're looking for love, stop. You don't have to look. You are love. We all are love. The fact that we're breathing, that's our life force. That's love. Any descriptions that we want to give it are completely unnecessary. Stick with the descriptions. In the book, we take love, the word, out of our communication from the second chapter of the book all the way through all the questions, just so people can go deeper and not summarize with something that can easily be misunderstood or considered something else. So, but you are love. And I wish I could go deeper with it. We don't have more time. What I want to do though is share with you um, right at the beginning of the chat is a link to what's called a publicizer campaign. So we just started today a campaign to pre-order our book, Lasting. And I hope you will all do it. If you use the link that's up there at the top, you will be able to go in and order a copy of Lasting. And I invite you all to do it. I'd just be overjoyed with the support for you doing that. We have a whole variety of things. It's a campaign that is 30 days long. We have all kinds of special offers in it, whether you want to get a signed autograph book or you want to get it with an energetic romance report, or you want to there's 8 different kinds of offers that you can go to with it. And I would just love it, absolutely love it, if you want a book, that you pre-order it there, and you will get an advanced review copy while we're making our ways to our publishing date. So please, 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 thank you for doing that. And then this other link that I just put in the chat is for the personal energetic profile. So if you haven't run a profile, go there, scroll to the bottom, create an account, and then go in and run your profile. Run yours first. And if there's other people in your life that you want to run, if it's a child, a friend, a sister, a brother, someone you work with, you can go back in and run their profile as well. And back to the fundraiser campaign, there is an offer in there that includes an energetic romance report. So there are ways to, and a 2-hour private session with me with that report. So there's some really fun little offers in there. Anyhow, please get your personal energetic profile. If you've gotten one, Samira, go back there and get that, and get the other people. There's your answer to the men you meet. And here's the deal. Don't use that information to project how someone's going to behave. This is like labeling. And it's crazy. And when I say don't use labels, and I have a typology that has labels, I'm really specific about it. Use that information to help you understand, to know someone better when a circumstances arrives. But if you project on them, if I go, well, she's just a woman, that's what women do. That's not fair, right? Because all women are different in their unique ways, as are men. Discover and then use what you know, use what you've learned from either genetic energetics or any typologies or assessment programs or things that you've learned. Incorporate all of that, but stay out of the judgment. You are good to go. Life is glorious. And I am through.
Thank you so much, Larry. We're so grateful for your time, for your wisdom, for 40 years of experience and just all these years of just conscious inquiry that have allowed you to be curious enough to cultivate that wisdom. So that's so much. So grateful, and so grateful for all of you. Please, yeah, I encourage you to set up a time to get your personal energetic profile taken, and then to actually have Larry explain it to you. It's mind-blowing. It's life-changing. So thank you so much, each one of you, for joining us today. We'll have another wisdom circle next week. Really excited about that. So next week we'll be diving deep into the world of what's a personal profile?
Is
Tina?
it human design?
Human design. Human design.
With Tina? Is she going to do it?
Human design.
Yeah.
This week. So join us for that. Same time, same channel, 11 a.m. Mountain Time on next Tuesday. Yeah, here on Legendary Zoom. Until then, love you guys. Have an amazing day. And just remember, this is your life.
Woo.
Make it legendary.
There it is. Yeah.
Thanks, Larry. Thanks, Gerald.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Have a good one.
Bye. Thank you.